Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You Exchange, the podcast where I exchange my user experiences to change them, and yours for the better. I'm Jeremy, a mentor and senior user researcher with over 8 years of experience and a background in neuroscience. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of engaging with hundreds of users around the world, spanning across Europe, the USA, Africa, and India. This has allowed me to deliver actionable insights that have improved user experiences with nutrition, automotive, delivery, and e-commerce sectors. I've created this podcast with the aim of providing my mentorship and educational content, offering actionable tips, knowledge, and guidance in the realm of research, specifically focusing on UX research to anyone having an interest in this area. And I hope that you will find this episode insightful. Hey, what's up? Happy to be back. Hope you liked my previous episodes. In this one, I'm still gonna cover some measurement topics, and it will be more linked to experiment design, let's say. And I will go broader than that. So it will touch a little bit on artificial intelligence, but not only. It's really applicable to any kind of product, but even more so with artificial intelligence. So we are entering a new era because everything is changing in terms of our method of interaction. Instead of clicking on buttons, we ask with voice. Instead of, let's say, dragging and dropping, we chat. These things are becoming increasingly popular and they are challenging the way we use technology. Right now, Google is losing traffic to Perplexity as an example. We prefer to ask something and be given the best list of websites that would answer our question and a nice formatted summary. There is even a new field which is made not to optimize the ranking of websites with Google, which was SEO, but it's not called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. So all of that to say that things are switching, things are changing pretty fast, and so we need to adapt. Well, this is debatable, but at least some adaptation will be required at some point. So, my point being, how can you predict to the best of your ability that your artificial intelligence application or feature or product will be a success? Well, here I'm about to provide you some framework that I used in the past. I'm not saying it's perfect, I'm not saying it's magical, but it's mine and it's what I used in the past and it was actually working. At least in my particular circumstance, in my context and use case. Of course, as always, please feel free to react, comment on the show, and give me your perspective. Let me know if you disagree. I really like to disagree, and because this is the way I learn the most. So, anyways, I'm going to share with you a cool trick to be able to predict as much as possible the user experience. This is valid, this is a caveat, this is valid for established user experiences and not changing ones, the ones that are really changing the paradigm through which we see, through which we interact and we see things. Let me give you an example. When we had the new .com bubble and the websites coming and internet, it really changed our way of retrieving information that were through books or Minitel for those who know it. So it changed our paradigm. So then when you were making a website, how do you do? Because you have no reference. You have no reference. And now it's kind of the same. So we went through the website, the first versions, let's say static websites, and then you had the dynamic ones, and then you had the applications. And every time the mental model is changing. And now even more so, because we can abstract even more any kind of, I don't like to say UI, because UI here is not the good term. A user interface is always present, let's say. But we can abstract a visual, even a visual user interface. You can almost abstract it. Right now, I open ChatGPT and I ask questions to it, and I will get answers, and I can craft a document without even seeing it. That's crazy. That's crazy. So my point being that our interaction patterns are changing forever. So knowing that, you can be thinking, yeah, I want to implement an AI agent in my company. Oh, yeah, I want to implement this or that. Yes, okay. Let me back up a little bit. How do you measure success of your implementation? And even before that, so if you have this question, please go back to my previous episode. I'm not saying it's comprehensive. I'm just saying I'm giving some thoughts, and that's the purpose of this podcast, giving some thoughts on the topic every time, not being comprehensive. So even before thinking about measuring success, how do you know that what you're putting inside of your product is actually what matters for your users, right? So that got me thinking. So imagine the analogy is you're a chef. You're a chef and you want to cook a meal, right? So you want to learn how to cook. You knew how to cook salads, but then you need to learn a new way to cook. You need to learn how to cook other types of dishes, whatever, oven dishes. I don't know. I'm really bad with examples. Sorry, I hope you get me. So the thing is, you want to learn how to cook. You don't want to learn how to follow recipes. You want to learn the ingredients. So you want to learn what ingredients pairs with what ingredients in what setting and for what occasions and for what purpose. So you need to learn the internal rule of pairing the ingredients, right? Or choosing the right ingredient, choosing the right cooking, choosing the right, and so on and so forth. And so that's the same with a product. When you make a product, any product has some kind of characteristics. So it has some technical characteristics, it has some design characteristics, it has some interaction characteristics, animation, whatever you want. Depending on the product, it could be physical, digital, and so it could be phygital, it could be a mix of both. Imagine a car. If you think about a car is physical, but it has also some digital elements to it. That's why I love cars so much. And also you can be inside of the object itself. So it's so complex anyways. So there are so many characteristics to your product, and then depending on your scope, how you want to focus, you could focus on the tablet inside of the car. You could focus on the driver's seat. There are many things you can focus on. You need to choose your scope and your point of focus. But then once you know that, you need to know what are the ingredients that you put inside of your dish and inside of your product. So let me give you a really concrete example with AI agents. Okay, an AI agent, how could it be? It could be proactive. It could reach out to you with alerts. It could be reactive. It could be a chatbot. You can talk to it and wait for an answer, right? It could be, when you talk to it, it could be only via voice, or it could be only via chat, written. It could be whatever. You send some documents and it answers you without even talking to it. It could be embedded in an interface. Imagine you have whatever program, your email. When you open an email, on top of it, you have a suggestion to use artificial intelligence to sum up the email. So we know all of these patterns. We are step by step, we are learning them. And so these are the ingredients of your product or of your feature, your service, right? But then your question is, I have all of these possibilities. What should I choose? How should I put them together so that it's the most coherent way, and so that it speaks to the senses of my user and it actually it actually makes sense to them. How can I know that? Well, you would tell me artificial intelligence is new. I don't know. Users are not used to that. It's true. Right now, we are more used to apps, and it's not mutually exclusive with artificial intelligence, but you get the point. We are used to, let's say, clicking on buttons and entering into forms and so on and so forth, right? And speaking to a chatbot to get an answer that changes every now and then, it's not so common for now still, for most of the population, even though it's greatly becoming familiar, I know. But you get the point. And so you're like, what is the ideal ingredient? Should I say that AI can make mistakes and that we should be careful? Should I, let's say, allow users to edit? Should I, be friendly with my users? This is something that came around recently, that ChatGPT was a bit too, how can I say, sycophantic, I think is the term, if I'm not mistaken, meaning too, how can I say, praising too much the user. Oh, you got this amazing idea, and you just said that, I don't know, you would like to cook lasagna for the dinner. It didn't make any sense, right? So how should it be? The tone, the voice, whatever. All of these possible ingredients, how should you have them? Well, I like to think of that as product characteristics, let's say. And that applies to AI and pretty much to anything else. And so there are two sides of the story. You have the designer and engineer and product team size. Whoever is making the dish, whoever is the cook, sorry. And then you have the user, you have the client, you have the customer who will experience that. And it's valid for everything. An author, when writing a story, depending on the quality of your writing, you have an intended outcome, and then you have the real outcome. Well, the resulting outcome, right? And so you have both sides, and sometimes the intended doesn't match the result outcome. My point with that is, even though I'm a real advocate for measuring the user experience, please don't only measure the user experience, the final user experience. You should be able internally to also hone and own your own UX measurement. You should be able to have some kind of process to measure the quality of what you're putting in front of customers. An internal referential. How can you build that? You would tell me it's easy because for websites, let's say, or applications or whatever desktop software that is well known since the 2000s, it's easy because we have referentials. We know what works and what doesn't. Yes, but there was always someone who didn't know. And how does that work? Well, you go through experiments, trial and error. You try. It's a bit of an art at the beginning, but then you gather data. Data will help you move forward. So you gather some data, and then you have some ideas. Okay, this is really appreciated by my customers. This is not. Okay, now that I know that, I can build my curve. I can add points to my graph, and knowing that if I praise my users too much, it's not good because I hear the market and I hear the feedback. So once you know that, you know the extremes, the extremely bad and the extremely good, right? Once you know that, you're able to replicate that internally. You replicate your measurement that you do with customers externally. You do it internally before launching any new update or new release or anything. And step by step, you build your good practices, your good design practices, your patterns, and so on. And so you do that also using the data that you have publicly available, because others make mistakes. You should take advantage of others' mistakes instead of doing them yourself. There's a caveat to that. If you do mistakes yourself, and more often, you will learn more quickly than your competitors. Learning is about failing more frequently and faster. So there's no better way to learn, of course. But if you cannot, at some point you can also leverage what's available out there. So you leverage that and okay, we learned with ChatGPT. Imagine you're a new AI provider or LLM provider. We learned through ChatGPT that people don't like to be praised so much for silly things. So maybe we'll not do that. Oh, what's the good level of praising and not praising? Oh, well, let's look at publicly available data and let's build our good practice. Or let's look at what experts in the field recommend. There are some metrics, there are some measures always available. You can leverage that. So you build your referential internally. You characterize your product. You characterize your dishes. It's the same as when you make a lasagna dish. It's like, oh yeah, here there is too much cream, or here there is too much tomato sauce, or here there is too much pasta, too much salt, and so on, right? So you built this, and you know what's good and what's not. And then, once you did that, you're able to predict more or less what's going to be the intended user experience. You have a sneak peek of what's going to be. You can more or less imagine, oh no, guys, we're not headed in the right direction. Let's go back. Let's postpone the launch because here we're not good. Right? I hope I'm making my point across. And then when you measure both internally and externally, you can relate one to another. You can say, oh, we thought it was going to be a good version of a product, and it seems like we were wrong by XYZ%. Let's fine-tune our model, and then let's go back to it. And every time your model will be more and more and more accurate, right? And so that's the power of that, because you can predict kind of the future in a way. So that's why I love it so much. Anyway, I hope I made my point across. Hope you liked it. If so, please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and hope to see you in the next one. Cheers. Yeah.